on live television. In just 35 seconds, one careless comment would ignite a firestorm that would see a prince physically removed from a studio. This is the story of that morning, the morning when everything went wrong. It started like any other episode of the Lorraine Kelly Show. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the audience was settled into their seats, expecting another pleasant morning of light conversation and celebrity interviews. Lorraine Kelly, the beloved Scottish presenter known for her warmth and kindness, sat in her usual chair with her welcoming smile. She had spent decades building a reputation as one of the most genuine and down-to-earth hosts on British television. Her guest that morning was Prince Harry. He walked onto the set with an air of confidence that immediately filled the porous studio. The audience applauded politely as he made his way to the guest chair across from Lorraine. He sat down, adjusted his jacket, and settled in with what could only be described as a smirk. Lorraine began the interview with her trademark warmth. "Welcome to the show," she said brightly. "It is absolutely lovely to have you here this morning. How are you doing?" Prince Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his legs casually. "I am doing well. Thank you for having me," he replied, though his tone carried something else beneath the politeness. Something sharp. Lorraine continued with her first question, keeping things light and friendly. "Now, you have been quite busy lately with various projects and initiatives. Can you tell our viewers a bit about what you have been working on?" Prince Harry paused for a moment, then let out a small laugh. "Well, Lorraine, I have been working on things that actually matter. Important things, things that make a real difference in the world." The way he emphasized the word "actually" caught Lorraine off guard. There was an edge to it, a subtle suggestion that perhaps what she did, what her show represented, did not fall into that category. But Lorraine, ever the professional, smiled and pressed on. "That sounds wonderful," she said genuinely. "Our viewers would love to hear more about these projects." Prince Harry shifted in his seat, and his expression changed slightly. "You see, that is the thing about television like this," he began, gesturing vaguely around the studio. "It is all very surface level, is it not? We sit here, we chat about nothing, we smile for the cameras, and everyone goes home feeling like they have accomplished something. But have they really?" The audience fell silent. This was not the direction anyone expected the interview to go. Lorraine maintained her composure, though a flicker of confusion crossed her face. "I think our show provides a bit of comfort and entertainment for people during their morning," Lorraine said carefully. Her Scottish accent warmed despite the tension beginning to creep into the conversation. "There is value in that, surely." Prince Harry laughed again, but this time it was not friendly. "Comfort? Entertainment? Is that what we are calling it?" He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Lorraine. "People are struggling out there, real struggles. And here we are, in this bubble, pretending that a chat about the weather or what someone had for breakfast somehow matters." Lorraine took a breath, still trying to keep the interview on track. "I understand that there are serious issues in the world," she said kindly, "and we do cover those topics on this show as well. But there is also nothing wrong with providing people a bit of lightness in their day." "Lightness," Prince Harry repeated, as if tasting the word. "That is one way to put it, I suppose. Another way would be to call it what it really is, a distraction, a way to keep people from thinking about what truly matters." The studio grew even quieter. Crew members exchanged glances. The audience sat frozen, unsure if they were witnessing a provocative interview or something far more uncomfortable. Lorraine, to her credit, remained calm. "I respect your opinion," she said, though her smile had tightened. "But I have to say, I think you might be underestimating the value of what we do here. We have covered serious topics on this show. We have raised awareness, we have supported charities, we have given people a voice." Prince Harry waved his hand dismissively. Yes, I am sure you have. In between the cooking segments and the fashion tips, right?" That was the first truly cutting remark, and it landed hard. Lorraine blinked, clearly stung by the condescension in his voice. "I have been doing this job for a very long time," Lorraine said, her voice steady but firmer now. "And I'm proud of the work we do here. We connect with people. We make them feel seen and heard, Prince." Harry sat back again, that smirk returning to his face. "Do you, though? Or do you just make them feel comfortable in their complacency?" The tension was now impossible to ignore. Even the camera seemed to pick up on it, zooming in slightly on both faces, as if sensing that something significant was unfolding. Lorraine took a different approach. "Let me ask you this," she said. "You have had your own platform for quite some time now. You have spoken about many issues. Do you think that perhaps there is room for different kinds of communication? That perhaps not every conversation needs to be heavy and serious? Prince Harry tilted his head. I think that people in positions of influence, people like you, Lorraine, have a responsibility. A responsibility to do more than just this. He gestured around the studio again with what could only be described as disdain. This? Lorraine repeated, her patience clearly wearing thin. What exactly is this that you find so objectionable? The performance of it all? Prince Harry said, his voice rising slightly. The fake smiles, the scripted questions, the pretending that everything is fine when it is not. It is all so incredibly shallow. The audience gasped. Several people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This had crossed a line. Lorraine sat up straighter in her chair. I am going to stop you right there, she said, her voice still controlled but now carrying real steel. I do not know what has gotten into you this morning, but you do not get to come onto my show and insult the work that I do. You do not get to insult the team that works incredibly hard to put this program together every single day. Prince Harry raised his eyebrows. Oh, have I touched a nerve? You have crossed a line, Lorraine said firmly. I have been nothing but welcoming and respectful to you since you walked through that door. And in return, you have been condescending and rude. I am simply being honest, Prince Harry replied, with a shrug. Perhaps that is something you are not used to on a show like this. Perhaps you prefer guests who just play along with the charade. Lorraine's expression hardened. Honesty and rudeness are not the same thing, she said. You can have important opinions without being disrespectful to the people around you. Prince Harry leaned forward again, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Tell me, Lorraine, when was the last time you actually challenged anyone on this show? When was the last time you had a real conversation instead of lobbing softball questions and nodding along to whatever answer you got? The studio was now thick with tension. You could hear the faint hum of the cameras, the rustle of clothing as audience members shifted, but otherwise, silence. Lorraine took a deep breath. I challenge people all the time, she said evenly, but I do it with respect. I do it with kindness. Those are not weaknesses, those are strengths. And frankly, they are qualities that you seem to be sorely lacking right now. Prince Harry stood up suddenly, his movement sharp and aggressive. Qualities I am lacking? He said, his voice louder now. Let me tell you something about qualities, Lorraine. Real courage is speaking truth to power. Real courage is not sitting here in your comfortable little studio, asking comfortable little questions to comfortable little guests. Lorraine stood up as well, matching his energy. Sit down, she said, her voice firm and commanding. You will not stand over me and lecture me about courage. I have interviewed politicians, activists, survivors of tragedy. I have covered wars and disasters and heartbreak. Do not presume to tell me what real courage looks like. Prince Harry laughed, but it was harsh and mocking. Oh, please. You interview people from the safety of this studio. You never have to face real consequences. You never have to put anything on the line. Unlike you, Lorraine shot back, her Scottish fire fully ignited. Now, you, who walked away from responsibility. You, who gave up your duties. And now you have the audacity to come here and lecture me about courage and responsibility? That hit home. Prince Harry's face flushed red. How dare you, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You do not know anything about my life or the choices I've had to make. And you do not know anything about mine, Lorraine countered. But the difference between us is that I would never come onto your platform and treat you with the disrespect you have shown me today. Prince Harry took a step closer to Lorraine's chair. Maybe someone needs to, he said coldly. Maybe someone needs to tell you that what you do here is meaningless. That you are wasting everyone's time, including your own. The audience audibly gasped. Several people put their hands over their mouths. This had gone far beyond uncomfortable and straight into shocking territory. Lorraine did not back down. She stood her ground, looking Prince Harry directly in the eye. Get off my stage, she said quietly, but with absolute authority. Prince Harry blinked, seemingly surprised by the directness of the command. Excuse me? You heard me, Lorraine said, her voice rising. Get off my stage. Get out of my studio. You do not get to come here and insult me, insult my team, insult the work we do, and then expect to stay. You are done here. Prince Harry looked around as if expecting someone to intervene, to tell Lorraine she could not do this. But the crew stood frozen, and the audience sat in stunned silence. You cannot be serious, Prince Harry said with a disbelieving laugh. I am absolutely serious, Lorraine replied. She turned to the side of the stage where the producer stood. Can we please have security escort our guest out? Prince Harry's expression transformed from shock to anger. You are throwing me out? Me? Do you have any idea who I am? I know exactly who you are, Lorraine said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. You are someone who thinks their title gives them the right to treat people poorly. You are someone who has forgotten basic manners and basic decency. And right now, you are someone who is no longer welcome on this show. Two security guards appeared from the wings, moving quickly but professionally toward the stage. Prince Harry looked at them, then back at Lorraine, his face a mask of indignation. This is outrageous, he said, his voice shaking with anger. You cannot do this to me. I just did, Lorraine said calmly, sitting back down in her chair as if to demonstrate that she was completely unfazed. Gentlemen, please show our guest to the exit. The security guards approached Prince Harry, one on each side. Sir, we need you to come with us, one of them said politely but firmly. Prince Harry looked around the studio wildly, as if searching for allies. This is absurd, he said to no one in particular. She invited me here. She asked me to be on her ridiculous show, and now she is throwing me out because I told the truth? No, Lorraine said from her chair, her voice clear and strong. I am asking you to leave because you were rude, disrespectful, and completely out of line. The truth has nothing to do with it. Basic human decency, however, has everything to do with it. One of the security guards gently took Prince Harry's arm. Sir, please, he said. Prince Harry jerked his arm away. Do not touch me, he snapped. Then, looking back at Lorraine one more time, he said, You are going to regret this. Lorraine met his gaze without flinching. The only thing I regret is wasting time on someone who clearly has no respect for anyone but himself. Goodbye. The security guards, now less gentle, took firmer hold of Prince Harry's arms and began guiding him toward the exit. He resisted for a moment, trying to shake them off, but they held fast. As they moved him across the stage, Prince Harry called out over his shoulder, This is what happens when you speak the truth. This is what happens when you refuse to play their games. The audience remained silent, watching the surreal scene unfold. Some looked shocked, others looked uncomfortable, and a few looked almost sympathetic to Lorraine, who sat in her chair with her hands folded, watching calmly as the prince was escorted away. Prince Harry continued to shout as they reached the wings. You are all sheep, all of you, sitting here, consuming this garbage, thinking it means something. His voice grew fainter as he was taken further backstage, until finally the studio door closed behind him with a heavy thud that seemed to echo through the space. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The cameras continued rolling, capturing Lorraine's face as she sat perfectly still, her expression composed but her eyes revealing the storm of emotions beneath the surface. Then, slowly, one person in the audience began to clap. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the entire studio was applauding, the sound building and building until it was thunderous. They were applauding for Lorraine, for her strength, for her dignity, for the way she had handled an impossible situation with grace and firmness. Lorraine looked out at the audience, and for the first time since the confrontation began, she smiled. A real smile, a tired smile, but a genuine one. Well, she said, her voice slightly shaky but trying for humor, that was certainly not what I had planned for this morning. The audience laughed, a release of all the tension that had been building. Lorraine laughed too, shaking her head in disbelief. You know, she continued, looking directly into the camera, I have been doing this job for a very long time, and I've met all kinds of people. Kind people, difficult people, shy people, outgoing people. But I have always tried to treat everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are or what title they hold. She paused, collecting her thoughts. And I expect the same in return. I do not think that is too much to ask. I do not think it is too much to expect that when someone comes onto this show, they treat our team, our audience, and me with basic courtesy. The audience applauded again, showing their support. Lorraine nodded her thanks. We work hard here, she said, her voice stronger now. Every single person on this team works incredibly hard to bring you a show that hopefully brightens your morning, that informs you, that entertains you, that makes you feel connected to the world. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what we do here. More applause, louder this time. So, Lorraine said, straightening her shoulders and lifting her chin, we're going to move on. We have a wonderful show planned for you today. We have got some brilliant guests coming up, some lovely music, and a fantastic cooking segment that I know you are all going to enjoy. She looked into the camera with that warm, familiar smile that had made her a beloved figure for so many years. Because that is what we do here. We keep going. We do not let negativity win. We do not let rudeness derail us. We focus on the good, on the positive, on the things that matter to real people living real lives. The audience rose to their feet, giving her a standing ovation. Lorraine's eyes glistened slightly, but she held it together, waving her hand as if to say it was all too much. "Oh, stop it," she said with a laugh, wiping at her eye quickly. "You are all going to make me cry, and we cannot have that. I have got 3 more hours of television to do." As the applause began to fade and the audience settled back into their seats, Lorraine took a deep breath and looked down at her notes. "Right," she said, her voice back to its normal, cheerful tone. "Let us get back to what we do best, shall we?" The cameras pulled back slightly, showing the full stage, the bright lights, the colorful set. Everything looked exactly as it had when the show started, but something fundamental had shifted. Lorraine Kelly had just demonstrated that kindness did not mean weakness, that warmth did not mean she could be walked over, and that respect was non-negotiable, no matter who you were. Backstage, away from the cameras and the lights, Prince Harry was still protesting loudly as security led him through the corridors toward the exit. His voice echoed off the walls, angry and defiant. "This is unbelievable," he kept saying. "Do you know who I am? You cannot treat me like this." The security guards remained professional and silent, continuing to guide him toward the door. Other staff members pressed themselves against the walls as they passed, eyes wide, phones out, undoubtedly recording the extraordinary scene. "I was invited here," Prince Harry continued, his voice rising. "She invited me, and now she throws me out like some sort of criminal? For what? For being honest?" One of the security guards finally spoke. "Sir, you need to calm down. Do not tell me to calm down." Prince Harry snapped. "Do not tell me anything. Just let me go." They reached the exit door, and the guards released their hold on his arms. Prince Harry straightened his jacket aggressively, his face still flushed with anger. "This is not over," he said, pointing back toward where the studio lay. "She cannot do this to me. Nobody does this to me." The security guard opened the door. "Sir, you need to leave the premises now." Prince Harry stared at him for a moment, as if considering whether to argue further. Then, with a final look of disgust, he walked through the door and out into the morning air. The door closed behind him with a final, definitive click. Back in the studio, Lorraine had moved on seamlessly to her next segment. She was chatting with a guest about a new book, smiling and engaged, asking thoughtful questions. To anyone who had not witnessed what had just occurred, it would seem like any other normal morning on the show. But those who had been there, who had seen it all unfold, knew they had witnessed something remarkable. They had seen a woman stand up for herself and her team with dignity and strength. They had seen someone refuse to be diminished or disrespected, regardless of the status of the person doing the disrespecting. As the show continued, the crew worked with renewed energy. The audience listened more attentively. And Lorraine Kelly, that warm, kind, genuine presence that had graced morning television for decades, continued doing exactly what she had always done best: connecting with people, bringing a bit of light into their day, and proving that you could be both gentle and fierce, kind and strong, warm and absolutely unyielding when it mattered most. The prince was gone. The show went on. And in that morning studio, under those bright lights, with those cameras rolling, Lorraine Kelly had shown everyone exactly what real courage looked like. It looked like standing your ground. It looked like demanding respect. It looked like knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone, no matter their title or status, make you feel small. The interview that was supposed to be just another pleasant morning chat had become something else entirely. It had become a moment that would be talked about for days, weeks, months to come. A moment where someone said enough is enough. A moment where dignity triumphed over arrogance. And through it all, Lorraine Kelly had remained exactly who she had always been: professional, kind, and absolutely unshakable when pushed too far. The warmth that made her beloved had not disappeared. It had simply been joined by steel when steel was needed. As the show moved into its next hour, the energy in the studio had transformed. What could have been a disaster had become a victory. What could have derailed the entire program had instead reinforced everything the show stood for: respect, kindness, genuine connection, and the understanding that everyone, from the host to the crew to the audience members, deserved to be treated with basic human decency. The morning sun streamed through the studio windows, bathing everything in golden light. The cameras continued to roll, the show continued on, and Lorraine Kelly, sitting in her chair with that familiar warm smile, proved once again why she had remained a beloved figure in British television for so many years. She was real, she was genuine, she was kind, and she absolutely would not tolerate being treated with anything less than respect. That was the morning Prince Harry was kicked off the Lorraine Kelly Show. That was the morning a simple chat show interview became something far more significant. That was the morning when everyone watching learned an important lesson about dignity, respect, and the fact that true strength often comes wrapped in kindness, but it is strength nonetheless. The prince was gone, escorted out by security, his protests fading into the distance. But the show remained, continuing on as it always had, a testament to the fact that no single person, no matter how important they believed themselves to be, was bigger than the basic principles of respect and decency that held everything together. Lorraine Kelly had drawn a line that morning, and she had done it with grace, with strength, and with the absolute certainty that she was right to do so. The audience had supported her, her team had supported her, and in the days that would follow, millions more would support her too. Understanding that what they had witnessed was not just a celebrity meltdown or a dramatic television moment, but something far more fundamental. They had witnessed someone standing up for themselves. They had witnessed boundaries being enforced. They had witnessed the moment when kindness showed its teeth, and those teeth were sharp indeed. The show continued. The sun continued to shine, and somewhere, far from that studio, a prince learned a lesson about respect that perhaps should have been learned much earlier in life. You could be royal, you could be famous, you could be important in all the ways the world measures importance, but none of that gave you the right to treat other people poorly. Lorraine Kelly had taught that lesson clearly and firmly that morning, and in doing so, she had proven exactly why she had earned the love and respect of millions over her long career. Not because she was perfect, not because she never faced challenges, but because when those challenges came, when someone tried to diminish her or the work she did, she stood tall and said no. That simple word, that powerful word, no. No, you will not treat me this way. No, you will not disrespect my team. No, you will not remain on this stage if you cannot behave with basic decency. Just no. And with that word, backed by action, Lorraine Kelly had written herself into television history, not as someone who caused drama, not as someone who created conflict, but as someone who knew her worth, defended her values, and did it all while maintaining the grace and professionalism that had defined her career. The morning show continued, segment after segment, guest after guest, each moment building back the warmth and positivity that had been temporarily shattered by one person's inability to show basic respect. And by the time the show wrapped for the day, it was as if the universe had corrected itself, as if balance had been restored, because it had been. The person who brought negativity and disrespect had been removed. The people who valued kindness and connection remained. And the show, that simple morning television program that some might dismiss as unimportant or trivial, had proven itself to be something more. It was a place where people mattered, where respect was required, where kindness ruled, but where that kindness had boundaries that would be enforced when necessary. Lorraine Kelly had shown everyone watching that you did not have to choose between being warm and being strong. You could be both. You should be both. And when the moment came that required you to stand firm, to draw that line, to say enough is enough, you could do so without losing the essential kindness that made you who you were. That was the real story of that morning. Not just that a prince was kicked off a talk show, though that was certainly dramatic enough. The real story was about a woman who knew her worth, who understood the value of the work she did, and who refused to let anyone make her feel small, no matter who they were or what title they held. It was a story about respect, about boundaries, about the fact that kindness is not weakness, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stand your ground and refuse to accept treatment that falls below the standard of basic human decency. And as the cameras finally stopped rolling, as the lights dimmed, as the crew began to pack up for the day, Lorraine Kelly could walk out of that studio with her head held high, knowing that she had done exactly the right thing. She had protected herself, her team, and the integrity of her show. She had demonstrated that there were lines that simply would not be crossed, and that crossing them came with consequences, regardless of who you were. The morning had started like any other. It had transformed into something extraordinary. And by the end, it had become a powerful reminder that we all deserve respect. We all deserve to be treated with basic decency, and that standing up for those principles is not optional. It is essential. That was the morning Prince Harry was kicked off the Lorraine Kelly show. And that was the morning Lorraine Kelly reminded everyone why she was and would always be one of the most respected and beloved figures in British television. Not because she never faced challenges, but because when